Welcome to the Hudson School District podcast series, Parenting with Pride, a conversation with parents about strengthening their relationships with their children.
We've all seen the memes of parents showing how we want to behave with our kids, and then the funny meme of what we actually sound like sometimes. Parenting with Pride is a course designed with all parents and kids in mind. We all want to strengthen our relationships with our kids and have smooth, calm running households.
Welcome to Parenting with Pride podcast. I am Leah and my co-host is Allison.
Hello.
And we are back with three great guests today who have actually taken the Parenting with Pride class, and we're so happy to welcome them. Stacy Summer, Katie Fredrickson, and Allie Hinderly. Hello, ladies.
Hi.
Hi.
And we're going to just start. Allison and I are going to just go do a little overview of the class. We are offering this twice a year, and we would love to have anybody join, but we also thought we could also give a little spiel and a little preview here of what the class is like. And maybe you could even take something away from this podcast too that would be helpful. So overview of the class, Allison, it's derived from teacher-child interaction training that a lot of the staff in the district is getting trained on. You and I are coaches for this.
Yeah, I think something really interesting that I learned when I was taking the coaches training was that TCIT, or teacher-child interaction training, is derived from parent-child interaction therapy. So this is a mode of therapy or a method of therapy that families have used in the past 3 or so decades to really strengthen the bond between parent and child and to eliminate and deal with any challenging behavior and even sometimes destructive behavior that happen at home. So the developers of TCIT for schools, they saw the value in this therapy. It's a psychologist from Chicago and then a school social worker from Minnesota. And they put this together for teachers. And Leah and I had talked to one of the developers at one of our trainings and thought this would be a really great and really strong thing for our families in the district to have access to. So Parenting with Pride was born last spring.
And it really provides specific language to encourage and promote the positive behavior at home. We know that's hard. We know that's really hard. So in the class, we focus on the PRIDE skills. So the acronym, stick with me. We got P for praise, R for reflection, I for imitation, D for description, behavior descriptions, and E for enjoyment, enjoying time together as a family. So ladies, our guests, we're going to turn to you, hit you up with a couple questions here. What did you enjoy when you took this class?
Yeah, I think for me, what I loved the most was seeing my kids so excited every single week, knowing that that day was coming, asking that anticipation, and they loved every bit of it. So at the beginning, we were able to have basically a family dinner where we all sat together. We as parents did not have to think about food, cooking, cleaning, anything like that. Was just an awesome start to the night. And then we could sit and have conversations. And then Mrs. Plackner came and took our kids so that we could learn as adults. And our kids just loved that because everything that she did was so engaging. Then as adults, we got to learn. And at the very end, when our children came back and we got to just sit and play, and they would just beg every week, when do we get to go back up to school and do the class? So that was something that I enjoyed as a parent, seeing their joy and then knowing that I was getting something out of it as well.
And I guess something we didn't touch on as part of an overview is that special time. Special time with your child really is that the backbone of this PCIT model. You know, we want to build relationships at school, sure, but the idea from this PCIT model that we're sending home with parents and children is that it's like 10 or 15 minutes a day. And it doesn't have to be every day, but it should be frequent enough where your kids can expect this time together. And it's when parents can practice these pride skills. But I'm sure these moms are going to talk a lot about that special time. And that's really what we were able to facilitate practice with in our class.
Purposeful time spent together. I think as parents, we get caught up in the life and the management of the life and all the children and all the things. But purposeful time spent together using these pride skills that I mentioned earlier really is the fundamental purpose of this class. And what we want you to take away and use in your own house to hopefully really empower you and your children to have a positive, healthy relationship. So that was a great overview, Allie. Thank you so much. We start with dinner every week, which really alleviates that stress at home and provides time together, which is what we want the whole thing to be about. And then to give parents time to learn, we provide childcare, and then in the end, that time together. Yeah, Allie, the kids, I saw exactly what you were talking about. Like, you had 2 kiddos, and then it was you and your husband, and I would see the banter between who was going to go with who each week. And, do I get dad? Do I get mom? And it really just, it was joyful. It was happy. And that's so exciting to see that. Thoughts on the learning part, ladies? I know sometimes it can be a lot to go and sit, but Elsa and I really tried to, make it hopefully engaging and thought-provoking. What were your thoughts on that?
From my perspective, so as sort of a lifelong student, I always enjoy the opportunity to be in the classroom and learning and having that time dedicated to something as important as parenting. And as parents, we don't really get a guide or lessons on how to do things the right way. So I really appreciated that, and I appreciated a lot of tips and tricks that I took away from each session. A lot of things focused on staying positive and reiterating things to my kids, and then also on how to redirect them. And then even though my husband didn't participate with me, I was able to bring those things home and provide to him the background of some of the techniques. And I think he became a little more bought in than he was initially also.
Oh, that's great.
That is great.
Yeah, I didn't know that. I think it can be hard when both parents aren't present to hear it, but that's exciting that he could, take some of what you learned and implement it. That's great. That's great. Katie, you and your husband came for most of it.
Yes.
I'm sure you went home to chat about it. What was the at-home conversation?
We really took away the just the positive reinforcement, I think, was huge for both of us. Eric felt a little like he just wasn't so confident with it because I have more of like the experience in the classroom. He was like, oh, you naturally can do these things. But I think that the more that he got used to it, the more he was willing to like, okay, I can do this. I can keep trying out more things as we kept practicing, as the course kept going on.
Yeah. And that's totally it, is the practice, Alice.
I was just going to say that that makes sense. You can think about what your comfort level is. And I think that any kind of new communication style or technique is a little bit awkward at first. And Leah and I, when we were talking about the pride skills, or when we talk about the pride skills, there's a couple of these that do feel a little bit more uncomfortable at first because you're not quite used to reflecting back what your kids are saying to you. And it might sound a little bit silly as you try it. But I know as we would listen in, Leah and I would bop around with these families while they were playing with their kids. And it was just so cool to be listening to how that dynamic would go and just how your kids would respond to you. Like when you would say something to them. I remember, Stacy, you were playing Legos with your boys and you said something and I think it might have been Danny. He was just in a conversation with you and you reflected something back, and it really helped facilitate then him to say more things to you without really having to ask a lot of questions or pull information out. It was just really natural, even after the first couple of sessions, which I thought it made my teacher heart, I guess, just being with pride to think that these kids are going to know and remember this language, and they're going to remember that special time. I know, Allie, your kids would that was part of what they were excited about. I had your little guy in first grade last year, and he would talk about it. I get to come back to school tonight with my mom and dad. It was just something that they all looked forward to. So
it was a positive experience for kids and parents.
Right.
And that's why we want to offer this class more and more. And that's why we're promoting and explaining it here, because we felt like it was so powerful for parents, but positive for the whole family. Yeah.
Absolutely.
Changes at home, ladies, any family dynamics that really changed, or any positive experiences from the tools that you learned in the class?
Sure, yeah. I can speak to some of the common language that we were taught was really helpful between both my spouse and I. But it took our kids, they were taken aback a little bit at first, like, why are you and Dad talking this way? What are you, and we were, they were noticing that we were being intentional, very natural. But, as Allison, you were saying, it's a little unnatural at first. But what I have found is now with time, the more, even when I hear my husband using it, it's then reminding me to use it as well. And now I actually was reflecting on this and recognizing that it has become more of a natural part of our conversation in our home, which we still see then our kids are calmer, they're more willing to be, to comply with what we're asking. But I was just really appreciating that takeaway of, wow, it actually has stuck with our family and our kids are responding in such positive ways.
That's great.
It's more natural for us. So.
And that's the ultimate, that it's something that simply becomes a habit in your language and your conversation as a family. That's great. That's really terrific.
Yeah, I agree with you. I've noticed that it's helped with transitions, help when like we're getting ready for bed, and it helps us to slow down a little bit and be able to like praise them when they're doing what they're supposed to. And then the other one is like, wait, they're getting praised for what they're supposed to do. I want to get praised too. And I feel like that's been huge, just to have us be consistent with that praise. And they're like, yes,
Yeah,
I'm
and
doing
you
what
really-
I'm supposed to do.
You can see their pride, like even in their body, and like, yes, I'm doing what is expected here.
It feels good.
And they know we notice. Totally.
Now, age ranges. I use this at home, and I have 9 to 14 and a husband. And I use this for everybody in our house.
9 to 40.
Yep. Honestly, I would say, who doesn't like to get a compliment? Who doesn't like praise? Who doesn't like to be noticed? And I've noticed my high schooler doing things without being asked now. And I am, try to follow up. And he's like, yeah, I knew you'd notice. And that just, he has come to expect that and want that. And so just that responsibility that he's taking on, because he's learned that there's, feedback and a positive response to what he's doing. So I do think it's not just something we can use for our littles, but it really can, move into the older kids and, spouses too.
Sometimes.
Sometimes.
Sorry, Luke, if you're listening.
So the pride skills, my next question would be, ladies, which one do you find you use the most? So if we talk about labeled praise, which is labeling a praise to your child, reflecting back what they're saying to you when you're in a conversation. Some people might call it active listening. And then behavior description. So describing the positive behavior that they're showing. Any of those do you find any of those to be one you use more frequent?
I think for me, I tend to use the labeled praise the most. Just because, like Katie was saying earlier, I've noticed it's helped us a lot more with transitions at home. And I use it a lot when my boys are doing what I'm asking them to do. So usually it's going to brush teeth.
The dreaded chore.
And it's, thank you, Danny, for going to brush your teeth. And we learned this in the class, it usually gets my other child then moving. It's not always Danny. Sometimes it's Andy, right? It flip-flops. But I think that's the thing that I use the most because it's been the most useful. But the other thing that I would say, and I don't think this is one of the words that make up pride, but one thing I learned in the class was that it takes our kids 10 seconds to process a command. And I was definitely the parent that was telling them, go brush your teeth, go brush your teeth, go brush your teeth. And now I found that I'm not always perfect, but I try to be a lot more patient and give them a minute to actually obey my command. And I think that has brought a lot more calm to our lives.
Right.
Stacy, that is such a good point.
Such a good point.
Yes. And oftentimes, it's not out of meanness or cruelness. We just work at a faster pace as adults. And there's always 5 other things that we're trying to do, right?
Put your shoes on, get your backpack, get out the door, make sure you have a snack.
Right. But giving them that time, allows for them to build that trust. They're going to trust me to do it. They're giving me a little wait time. And then following up with that praise. That's great. Great point, Stacy. So your kiddos, what did they like the most about the class? Did they share any feedback with any of you?
I can share. Both my boys actually really loved the food. To be honest,
Check mark for us.
the food. And they really loved the activity they got to do in there with their friends. And every week was different. And they really looked forward to the time they got to play with their friends do. And then they were always excited with what parent they were going to get to play with when it came time for us to have our special time together. And there was kind of like a fight over which parent they were going to spend time with. So I would say actually all of it. That was kind of all.
Yeah, that's great.
great.
That's great.
So what I'll say that our kids really liked was not necessarily what happened, although they loved everything about being at the class. They really, really looked forward what was happening outside of the class, which was at home and the special time that we were implementing. That was something that they were asking for in the evenings, and even they didn't have to fixate on that because they knew that that was going to be part of our routine. So what we noticed is when they knew they were going to get that one-on-one time with either mom or dad, they were seeking our attention. They weren't seeking our attention in other ways. So we saw fewer behaviors or less whining at our house, less trying to, kind of that repeated requests over and over. It was almost like there was a sense of peace about them knowing that they were going to get that time. They didn't need to worry about it because it was going to be happening. We tried to do it every night. I think during the class we were definitely better at it. We tried to then do it a few times a week. Since the class, we've kept up with it. It hasn't been as frequent, but we still see the benefit. We still see that value, and we end up as parents walking away really finding that we really enjoy our time and how worthwhile it is. And again, it's almost like you can just see it in their little bodies afterward that they had their needs met. Their basket was full. So
And that's exactly it. When we slow down and spend time together, whether it's just with one child or as a family, we're building that relationship, and then walking away, we can ask things of them. But it's so hard to ask a child to do something when they're depleted, and we want to rush and get all the things done, but we have to slow down to go fast. I think that's so important. We still do game nights, and you heard my age range, 9, 12, and 14, and we still play cards when we go out for meals, and it's just something that's expected now, and we rotate who picks the game when it's game nights, and it's fun and it's enjoyable, and I still have big kids that still want to do that, and I just think anybody just loves to have some planned time together and be with the people who love you. So
And I think just remembering that special time is really important to fill that tank for your kids and for yourself as a parent. But it doesn't have to be, we have 3 kids at home too, 9, 9, and 5. And it's just not feasible with sports 4 nights a week and school and homework to give all 3 of them special time every single day. So I think something that I hope that you took away from the class, and your spouses too, and other parents, I know we had a dad that came with twins, and he had to divide his time alone at the class with his boys, and it never seemed like it was a struggle. The boys were really patient about that, and I think they all enjoyed themselves. But I think just the idea that this special time is that filling up the bucket with positive things and positive intent, and then giving yourself time to schedule that with your kids when it fits. I know our little guy will ask my husband, "Dad, can you do special time with me?" And then it's, "Okay, sure, you pick what we're doing." And then they go off and they have their time, and it's not a big chunk. It's not a big chunk of time, but there's a lot of impact made.
that's a great way to put it. It doesn't have to be very long, but it really gives a high impact to your relationship with your child. Definitely. So Allison and I would love to invite you to the class.
Yeah, we've got-
Check out your community ed flyer that comes out. I think it's quarterly. Quarterly, we'll go with that. So we're offering the class a couple times a year. So keep an eye out for that.
Right. This
And
next session
remember,
starts October 2nd.
the next session, Allison, you got it. The next session starts in a couple weeks, and we would love to have you join us. So just remember, positive, labeled praise, reflect what they're saying, imitate and play together, describe their behavior, and enjoy time with your kiddos. And we would love to have you come to one of our classes. Stay tuned for our next podcast. And if you have any questions, you can always reach out to connections@hudsonraiders.org. Thanks for tuning in.
We have a lot more conversations ahead in our Parenting with Pride series. You can find the Hudson School District Podcast Library on our website, hudsonraiders.org, under the Families tab, and on Spotify. If you have questions, send an email to connections@hudsonraiders.org.